Our top story now, and my favourite Jeremy. It's budget day, and in a matter of hours, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is set to deliver what could be the Conservatives' last budget before the next general election.
To tell us more about what we can expect, a legend, TalkTV's chief political commentator, Peter Carver, live from Westminster this morning, and down the line, economic commentator Laurie Laird. Let's just start with you, Pete, standing there in your lovely scarf. Mate, I guess the general opinion would be, not for us who are interested in politics, but for many people, it would be like, what are we going to get? What's it going to mean? And I do believe I'm right when I say there's a degree of cynicism and people are looking at this budget a little bit differently. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do, Jeremy, and I think the overall tax burden is at such a high level and people are feeling very, very squeezed that actually, even if national insurance is reduced by 2%, 2 percentage points in the pound, that's almost exactly what happened in the autumn statement, and people didn't really notice. But what Jeremy Hunt is bargaining on is that people will say, right, average person, £900 better off as a result. But the problem is the overall tax burden is going up. People are seeing council tax going up. They're seeing all sorts of other bills going up as well. Inflation's still at 4%, despite the fact that the government has got it down from 11.4%. So there's lots in this. There's lots, I think, that the government will want to highlight, not least those tax cuts, but also things like a freeze in fuel duty, which is something that I know Howard Cox has been campaigning for some time, the Fair Fuel campaigner and Reform UK candidate. There's a lot as well in this, I think, probably in regard to alcohol duty as well. But we'll see what the Chancellor has. There's always some sort of unexpected thing, a rabbit from the hat, as we call it. We'll be waiting for that and bring you live coverage, of course, here on TalkTV from around about 12:30 after Prime Minister's questions.
And Laurie, it would appear that the Chancellor is predicted to say we have enough fiscal headroom to afford a 2p cut to national insurance. Where's it going to come from?
Excellent question. And honestly, let me start on a positive note before I come across as a grumpy old woman. I love that you started, Nicola, by saying you like Budget Day. I think the fact that this is the lead story across the country shows that people are fairly financially literate here. I like that the country is anticipating the budget. And as we've heard from some of those texts that you read out, I think the level of financial literacy in the country is probably better than we're seeing at number 10 and number 11. You ask exactly the right question. Where's this money going to come from? And we can talk about fiscal headroom a little bit later if we get some time, because we pretend we know what it means, but we really don't. But where's the money going to come from? Let's look at it the other way. What is going to be cut to afford this 2p cut in NI? This does automatically need a reduction in spending. When is somebody of a political party, any political party, going to put their big person pants on and say, look, we can have better public services, and you tell pollsters you want better public services, or we can have lower taxes? We can't have both.
Laurie, I think that's a really interesting point that you make, because I've been saying it for weeks. I think after COVID...
I'm quoting you to you.
No, after COVID, when furlough happened, Pete will agree with me on this, and I thought it was incredible. But I also, at the time, thought, do they need to explain to people that we're going to have to pay this back? And the overriding feeling that I have, and certainly the messages that we've been getting over the last couple of weeks, is that actually, you ain't going to con the public this time. I think they've been stung with furlough and what happened, and I think they now realise, you call it literacy, yeah, quite right, that actually if you're trying to buy votes, we're going to have to pay for it further down the line. And just taking it to you, Pete, what Laurie said, there's the problem. Our public services are frankly not impressive, and we've got the highest taxation in 70 years. Not a good look.
And people are asking, where's that value for money coming from, Jeremy? They're asking if we're paying such a high level of tax, although there is evidence to suggest that people actually don't want taxes to come down because they don't want public services to suffer. And the question is, for Jeremy Hunt, if he is going to make changes, if he is going to lower taxation, well, the fact is that he's going to probably have to cut public services in some way. As Laurie will tell you, money only comes from 3 places: taxation, cutting spending from other budgetary departments, which I think Jeremy Hunt is probably going to do today, and borrowing, which he says he doesn't want to do because he wants to pay down the national debt. That's one of the 5 pledges that Rishi Sunak has. So a lot of people saying, right, we're paying quite a lot of tax. Where is the GP appointment? Where is the school place for my kid? Where is the house for my kid to buy or for me to buy? There are lots of questions around this, and that's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change as a result of simply a budget today, even though it's a big, important thing in our society, in our politics. There's a lot that a lot of people will want that is much bigger change. And because Labour's 20 points ahead in the polls, well, that certainly bears that out.
And Laurie, there's been rumours about this non-dom status.
Yeah.
Will it be in? Will it not? Windfall tax, etc. Classic Labour policies. Do you think that either of those will go ahead today, or do you think that that's something that's been floated around in the run-up to a budget as if he'd already announced it?
I suspect that both of those things, both of those Labour policies, that getting rid of the non-dom tax exemption, or at least altering that in some way, and also increasing that windfall tax for North Sea drilling, I think both of those can be in there, if only to take away some policy positions from Labour. But look, this is not an economically literate budget if it comes down the way we expect it to. And for me, this is incredibly disappointing. Remember, Jeremy Hunt was meant to be this man of competence after the Liz Truss budget, right? He replaced Kwasi Kwarteng. And when we look at how this budget is being created, we know that various Tories have said, okay, we had that 2p NI cut in the last budget, didn't seem to register in the polls. Let's try it again. This is like when you see American sitcoms filmed before a live audience and an actor makes a joke and it falls flat and they say, oh, let me try that one again. This is what this looks like. This doesn't have anything to do with economic growth as much as Jeremy Hunt would have us believe this. This is a pre-election budget. Don't mistake it for anything else.
Pete, it's quite interesting listening to Laurie. She's far more erudite than me, but I think she speaks... I mean, we had this whole thing, didn't we, after the Boris Johnson debacle and Liz Truss crashing the economy in 49 days, and yet we find out this week that Rishi Sunak is less popular than even Liz Truss at her worst moments. Jeremy Hunt was supposed to be this stabilising force, not dynamic, not interesting, fair enough, but nothing seems to shift the dial. And even the most die-hard Tory voters, I suspect, Pete, are going, to me, the whole thing looks tired. It looks out of ideas. It looks inept. And it's just like, I feel like as a country, we're treading water. Would that be a fair assessment, Pete?
A lot of people feel that way, Jeremy, and it's not just the voters, it's some of the MPs as well. There's quite a few rows on the backbenches about this. Lots of people want an income tax cut in the Conservative Party I've been speaking to, rather than a national insurance cut, because an income tax cut, even though it's more expensive, even though it can be more inflationary as time goes on, it's nonetheless the case that people really see it as more of a tax cut than a national insurance cut. Also, pensioners, you've got to factor them into this as well. People who generally, not always, but generally vote for the Conservative Party or are more likely to vote for the Conservative Party. Well, what's in that for them? Because they usually don't pay national insurance because they don't pay it on pensions. So there's a lot of rows already. This hasn't even started. This is just the speculation. Nothing is really confirmed, although we're pretty sure there's going to be a 2 percentage point national insurance cut. But even within the Conservative Party, there's still a lot of antsy people, a lot of consternation about this, a lot of worry about what this really actually means, and also will there be any benefit from it for the Conservative Party in the polls. As you correctly point out, last time in the autumn there was really no change whatsoever. They're sort of doing the same thing again and expecting a different outcome.
Laurie, this is very likely to be the last budget from a Tory party in some time.
Maybe not.
No, maybe not, but it's likely be according to the polls. Do you think there's any chance that Jeremy Hunt could be laying certain traps for Labour, for an incumbent Labour government in this policy to kind of, I don't know, welcome them into number 10 and 11?
I sort of get the feeling that one of the reasons that we hear the language we do from the Labour Party, which is not we're going to give everybody a 30% pay increase, that was always the thing, let's print some money. The Labour Party has been parking their tanks on the lawns of the Tory Party for 6 months saying there ain't no money. I think they've shown, I'm not saying it'll work, by the way, let's look at Birmingham City Council, but their argument has been we're not going to make promises we can't fulfil. Is that not right, Laurie? It's a different message.
I mean, look, Labour is sort of stuck, and I do think Jeremy Hunt, just for the fun of it, may take some of their flagship policies. But look, you mentioned Birmingham Council. That one of the areas that will have to be cut to afford this 2p NI cut is money to local authorities. And I'm fascinated by this because this is how we all interact with government in the first place, right? We're not so much touched by what's happening at Westminster. We care about whether our bins are collected every 1 or 2 weeks, or at least I care about that. We care about the conditions of our roads. And you can bet that one of the areas where funding will be cut to pay for this, for the NI cut, will be to local authorities. And Birmingham's a little bit of a special case, but we've got possibly 20% of local authorities saying we're going to go bankrupt, or the local authority equivalent of it. This is really worrying. But getting back to labor, I don't. If I were Rachel Reeves, I'm not sure what I would do other than to say, you know what, we're going to continue to fund public services.
Well, thank you so much to Peter Cardwell and economics commentator Laurie Laird. We'll be
Thanks,
back with
guys.
Peter
Nice
later in the
scarf,
show.
Pete.
He's very jealous, Peter. I think he wants you to bring it back to the studio.